So you're from Kurg, and now you're in Colombia.
Yes.
How has that? I mean, I'm sure you traveled a lot in between those 2 points, but how has it been coming to Colombia? And I want to bring this conversation into the direction of like how you figured out, you know, your visas and your work. But yeah, but let's just talk about the transition first.
Okay.
Yeah, how you came here, why?
So the reason I'm here in Colombia is uh, because of Christina, my wife. We met in India. We fell in love in India. She fell in love with India. We got married in India. We were planning to live in India. But what happened was, I had never met Christina's family. The only person in Christina's family that I had met was her mother. I had not met her brother or her father or anybody else. So I always had that desire to come to Colombia, meet her family, meet the country, meet the culture and everything, get to know the culture. So during the pandemic, of course, my business had to close down. To give some context, I was in the tourism field. I was running a backpackers hostel and a bicycle tour company, so I was constantly meeting people, and that sort of thing was always there. Travel and everything related to travel and storytelling was always part of my life. At that point, when Christian and I was dating, I always had that thing that, she's a very beautiful person, very loving person. I want to marry her, but I want to come to Colombia and meet her father and sort of ask his permission before marrying her and everything. But of course, the pandemic sort of rained upon that plan, and we had to get married in India in the middle of the pandemic. Without any family or friends. We just had like 5 friends who were allowed to come to the registrar to sign the documents and everything.
Okay.
So we got married there, and when we were present, so after getting married, and by then I had closed my business, nothing was moving in India, we got an opportunity to come to Colombia and work in Colombia. So we took that opportunity and came to Colombia. So the opportunity that was presented to us was to run a eco resort in Palomino, which is in the north of Colombia. It's a luxury eco resort, and I had some sort of background in hotel management, particularly in hotel audits, and also given my experience running Airbnbs, hostels and things like that. That was a good choice for me. And Christina also has some background in hospitality, and she's very familiar with Colombian laws and everything. So we both came as joint general managers for the hotel.
Right.
So we came on what is known as the M1 category of visa, which is Migrant 1, which is given to spouses or permanent partners of Colombian citizens.
Right.
So this visa, the M1 visa, basically gave me all the rights to live, work, study, or conduct business in Colombia. So I came on that visa, and I'm continuing on that visa right now.
Okay, cool. I was just going to say, like, I've just quickly, I've had the inverse story, but it's a very similar story. So I'm also married to a Colombian, but it was the same intuition. I wanted to bring my family over to meet her whole family first, including my bar. So my grandmother came over. She was 80 something at the time. So she's still with us, and so hopefully she'll come again. But yeah, so they all met each other. That was just before the pandemic, 2019.
Okay.
Well, yeah. And then the pandemic hit, and then we got married here. Only a few people because everything was super restricted. So we have parallel stories, but just flipped from India to
Colombia.
To Colombia.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you started your journey. So how was how was did you work in Palomino at the time?
Yes.
Okay, so how was working in Palomino? How was it working within the Colombian environment and the tourists?
So there were challenges for both of us, for Christina and I, both of us. For me, the challenge was mostly in terms of the language, because I barely spoke any Spanish when I came here. Secondly, understanding from a cultural perspective, how are people? What is the psyche of people? What is the work culture here? What is okay? How much can I push an employee to work? And when should I step back? Those were challenges for me.
Yeah.
But thanks to my wife, I always got the right input in that context,
That helps.
and she was a great help because she was the one who was always dealing with the staff. But there were certain areas where I had to step in to give a perspective of what the hospitality industry needs and stepping beyond that industry standards and what does the guest really need. So it was a constant interaction between the ownership, the staff, and the guest. And the language and the culture was a barrier, but thanks to my wife, I was able to overcome all those things. But it was very interesting. People were very nice in the coast. I would say like people in Colombia are very nice, very nice people, very open-hearted. And the same was the case in Palomino because they quickly started to understand me without a language.
Okay.
They knew that when I was trying to communicate something, they knew that this is where he is coming from. He's not grounding us for something. It is coming out a little gross or rude because of the language barrier. So they always understood that, and I'm very lucky that those people were able to understand me and I was able to communicate. So communication, language, it is not just words, it's always about your expressions, it's about your intentions and how you deal with situations. So that was one part of it. Language was a barrier. Secondly, Palomino was a remote place, so we did not even have an ATM in Palomino or a clinic. So everything was far. We did not have friends in Palomino, and we were living inside the property. So it was a 40-acre property, and we had a cabin there. So Christine and I were living there. Even on our day off, if we were stepping out, it was always we were meeting either staff on the property or a guest on the property. So there was a lack of private space which was weighing upon us eventually. And of course, being a small place, we didn't have many friends, we didn't have anything much to do. So those were some of those challenges we had there, and which eventually prompted us to take the decision to leave that and find the next adventure in life.
That was Bogota.
That was Bogota. Bogota happened. The Bogota was not on the plan. When we left Palomino, we did not have a plan. We left Palomino, we came to Bogota because it was a natural choice, because we had a place to stay thanks to my father-in-law. So we came here, we left most of our luggage here, and then we went to visit my mother-in-law who was living in Vijaleva.
Oh, wow.
And interestingly, in Vijaleva, my mother-in-law lived in a community who are the followers of Sri Aurobindo from India.
Okay.
So they were inspired by Aurobindo. They have an ashram there. So we went and lived there for 1 month.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law has a small cabin there, an independent cabin. And next to the cabin there was another small cabin which had 1 bedroom and a hall and a kitchen. So we spent a month there. Of course, we did not cook. We went to the ashram to eat Indian food every day.
Yeah, right.
So we spent 1 month there trying to figure out what we want to do next. And then from there we went to Ibagué, which is another beautiful region in Colombia where my father-in-law lives. He has a small farm there. And during the pandemic, this podcast is also about digital nomads and everything. We always talk about digital nomads as young hippie people, but I would say like my father-in-law is 72-year-old digital nomad to a certain extent. So he was forced to move to his farm during the pandemic, and he figured out that he could run his business, whatever little it is, from the farm just using his phone. Technologically challenged, my father-in-law still finds it difficult to manage the phone and everything, but he manages everything on his phone.
So he's like a 70-year-old domestic nomad who's just gone to his finca.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
So we went and spent a month there in the farm. We had Christina also hadn't visited her father's place in many years because she moved up to Colombia in 2019 January. And
okay.
then finally she went back there again in 2022 January, so 3 years later. Um, so we went and visited her friends and everything.
That's amazing.
And then again we went back to Vijaleva
Yeah,
because the appeal was very strong. And
I love that town.
we rented a cabin there and we lived there for 3 months before the bug started really biting us. The bug of boredom, because
Okay.
after 3 months it gets a little boring for us. Uh, Vijaleva is nice for a few days, for a few weeks, but for 3 months it was getting too much. So then we decided to move back to Bogota and find our way in
Find
Bogota.
your way. And then, okay, by the way, you've got some of the coolest locations on this side of Colombia, which aren't that visited, but I love Ibagué, and Leva is a dreamy town. And so then you came back to Bogota, and how have you developed things in Bogota in terms of work and stuff? Because I know that's been an interesting journey.
That has been a very interesting journey,
Yeah.
and probably the most challenging part of my life. Um, I was able to navigate a lot of that because of Christina,
Yeah.
because how she supported me during this time. So we came to Bogota with the intention that Christina wanted to study to become a barista, and she also wanted to study some more. She's a good baker, but she wanted to study some more techniques. So she was taking up these 2 or 3 short courses. So that was the idea, that we come to Bogota for 3 months and then we'll figure out from there. And then she took on a full 2 year course in culinary sciences. Um, so then we decided that okay, Bogota is going to be our home for the next 2 years.
Right.
So which sort of gave me a sense of grounding as to okay, this is where I'm going to build my life. So how did I build my life? Initially, the first 2 months that I was in Bogota, Christina was doing all these small courses, and we didn't have much plans as to what's going to happen. I walked around Bogota, not around Bogota, that will be too much to say. I walked around Santa Barbara and Usaquén,
Yeah.
two of the regions that was fairly safe and closer to home. I walked like a madman for 2 to 4 hours every day. I went through every single street. I tried every single cafe in this region. I tried to make friends wherever possible.
Very
And that's when I also started practicing my Spanish. And 2 months later, I found an academy where I could go and learn Spanish every day. So I signed up for that course. So every morning I would go 2 hours or 3 hours to learn Spanish, which gave me something to do for the day.
Okay.
And slowly I built a friend circle, built a routine around myself. And then I always, what can I do in Colombia that doesn't require too much of Spanish? So one of those things that I could do was teach yoga, which I always wanted to do, and I was also doing at that point, but not to a big extent. So I started teaching yoga in the park. Initially I started teaching yoga online from home. I did that for about 4 months and I did not find it very rewarding. It's not the same. Teaching yoga online is not the same. So I was losing a little bit of interest in that. But then Christina's friend, she mentioned that no, why don't you try teaching yoga in the park? So she was the one who took me to a park, brought a couple of her friends to take classes with me.
Okay.
And then I started teaching. Of course, I was teaching in English. And then I started advertising my classes in the expat community on
Indian
Facebook.
expat.
No, the the Bogota expat Facebook group.
That I posted on.
Exactly.
And then you saw it as well. Okay.
Exactly. So there are two groups in which I promote. One is the Bogota Expats group, and the one is the Bogota Digital Nomad group.
Okay.
So through that, I started getting a couple of people who were interested in yoga, and it was not that every weekend I was having tens of clients. No, I would have some days one student or some days two students, but then I always thought that as something that I have to do. So I would advertise my class. Even if nobody signed up for the class, I would still show up in the park
That's very interesting.
and just be with that, saying that okay, I'm putting this effort and probably that will be rewarded. Slowly I started building a community around that, Now I have on a weekly basis I have 3 to 4 students who come and go. Many of them are repeating people who have been coming for like 8 or 9 months now, but they don't come every weekend. They come like twice a month.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
They all come here on the digital nomad visa or on the 90-day program. They go back to the US or Europe, wherever it is, and they come back 6 months later, and then they will still come to the yoga class. It is very rewarding for me.
So these digital nomads are like frequently visiting Colombia. Like this is their place that they want to be a nomad.
Yes,
And
so
they connect with you.
yeah, exactly. So that would be too much to say they connect with me, but yeah, I connect with them.
Okay.
I
Okay,
reach
okay.
out to them.
Okay.
That is one of the qualities that I have developed to always
Yeah.
stay in touch with people.
Yeah.
However far they are, wherever they are, I still try to send a message not just from a commercial perspective, not from that. It is also something that I like to do, stay in touch with people. So yeah, that's how people come back
That's
to the
so
classes and everything. And that was going on well, and then I slowly developed some yoga clients near my home, where I could go to their apartments and teach. Very small groups, 2 people, 3 people, small friends group. I teach in the apartments or on the rooftop or in the common rooms they have, and that's been slowly developing from there. And much later, I always had a passion towards teaching.
Yeah, okay.
So that is in 2023 March, I asked the academy where I learned Spanish if they want an English teacher, and they said yes. So I teach English. So I teach English in the academy. I go there 2 or 3 times a week, and I teach in the academy twice or thrice a week. And on a daily basis, I teach for the same academy online. I have online students, and I have a few private students who have specific purpose in English. Let's say that I have a couple, husband and wife, who are advocates, and they want to learn English. They speak good English. They speak English at a higher than intermediary level, let's say at an advanced level, but they want to improve their language in terms of their own profession.
Yeah.
So I take their case studies, they give me case studies, I read that, and I sort of interpret those case studies to them. I have another student who is an accountant as well, so I do that as well. So I have something like this, which is very rewarding for me. So that's what it is.
That's awesome, man. It's so interesting to hear how you developed all of this whilst you're here. And would you say that it was like, how hard is it to develop an income here which gives you a good standard of living? Would you say in Colombia that's a hard journey, or you know, because we're here in a lovely cafe right now, so I would consider this.
It is a hard journey.
It's a hard journey.
So, as a digital nomad, I would say that if you are working for a company in the US or Europe or somewhere else where they're paying you in US dollars or in euros or in pounds, and you're living in Colombia, it is fine. You can have a very good life here in Colombia. But if you're trying to come to Colombia and find jobs and digital nomad gigs in Colombia and live in Colombia, that's going to be challenging because you earn less here in Colombia. So earning in Colombia and spending in Colombia is not the best deal for a digital nomad, considering that a digital nomad has other expenses, including, traveling to their home country and coming back. So in that sense, if you have a job that is based out of anywhere in Europe or Canada or USA or Australia or somewhere which has a higher income earning potential and you're spending in pesos, that's a good deal for you.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And also coming to Colombia and trying to make it work in Colombia, if you do not know Spanish, is going to be difficult. Because let us say that you are an amazing business analyst, but you don't speak any Spanish. what can you offer a Spanish speaking, a Colombian business? Because if you don't speak Spanish, you're not able to connect with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Spanish is important, and if possible, life's easier if you're earning from the US or Europe or in pounds or euros.
Yes, yes.
And right now, you're quite deep into your nomadic journey right now. You seem quite settled. But right now, what would you say are your two biggest challenges or problems still to overcome?
For me, the biggest challenge for me to overcome is my Spanish skills. My wife and many of my friends say that this is just you're being hard on yourself, that you have enough Spanish levels. But I am sort of a polyglot. I speak 6 to 7 languages at a native level. So for me, anywhere I reach in Spanish is still not enough.
I see what
I,
you mean.
I would like to have a very fluid, coherent conversation with a Spanish speaking Colombian. And only then I will be able to unlock my full potential in terms of whatever I am able to offer. Whether it is yoga, whether it is teaching English, or whether it is working in numbers. That's another thing that I do. I work with numbers and I do small gigs with that. But the full potential of that will be unlocked only if I am able to really communicate in Spanish, go to that deepest level of Spanish and communicate at that level.
And so on a scale of 1 to 10, how big is that problem?
It is quite a big problem because uh, there are certain, when you're offering a service, or at least from my perspective, when I'm offering a service, I want to offer the fullest potential of that service. And I feel that I will be able to offer that only if I have the language base to offer that. So that is still a problem, a challenge to me, which I'm overcoming every day. I practice my Spanish. I'm taking small jobs where I have to interact in Spanish. One of my yoga clients is a Spanish speaker who doesn't speak any English, but I still developed that. So I think it will take me about another year to completely overcome that. I think there should be that tipping point somewhere,
Yeah.
which is forcing me to say that, okay, now you really speak Spanish. You really need to let go of that thought that is in your own mind that you don't speak Spanish.
Yeah. Alright. So you give it maybe an 8 at the moment out of 10 as a problem for you for the next year, and
Yes,
then
yes.
you'll overcome it. Okay. Is there anything else that you would say is something that is value to you?
Another problem, I would say, in Colombia in general is the security or the safety aspect, or I would rather say that the perceived security problems. Okay, why am I saying it as a perceived security problem? It is because after living in Bogota for 2 years and after living in Colombia for 3 years, fortunately, I have never been in a situation where my security has been compromised. Yeah, never in those 3 years. For multiple reasons. One is I have been ingrained right from the day that I boarded a plane to Colombia to say that you need to take care of yourself. Christina, yeah,
Yes.
she's phenomenal in that way that she has integrated me well into the society, and she always says that you need to be careful. But of course, me being me, I am still careless. I take out my phone on the street to check for a WhatsApp message or just out of whim to take a picture, whatever it is. But fortunately, I have never had an issue with that. But that is a nagging thought always, because you always hear stories about people getting mugged or for whatever reason it is. That is still something that always prevents me from doing things. Whenever I am going out, I still have to think twice. Is this the right time to go out, particularly at night? I don't go out at night, but still, I'm coming back from a restaurant or for some reason, you still have that thing in your mind.
Yeah. I think that's good. I mean, I've traveled the whole, just a compliment to Colombia, I've traveled the whole country, many, many remote regions, including some times we were just in, there was a point where there was a whole town that got flooded. We were just on a boat in this town. I've done a lot of things here, and I've never had a problem. But also, I think all the while you have to be. So I actually pushed the risk level as far as I could, but if you always have to be conscious because you do hear stories of people being. But I think that happens a lot. Just my opinion, because A, they might not be integrated well, but B, they want to come here and they want to party. As soon as you're vulnerable because you're drunk and it's late at night, that's when people will jump on you, and that's when the risk factor becomes a reality. More
You
often
are
than not.
absolutely spot on.
So that's why
with that.
Medellin is that.
Yes,
is
you
where
are
everything
absolutely
is.
spot on with that. There is a security threat anywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
Some places are safer than others, but you cannot let your guard down. You cannot be stupid.
Yeah.
That's something that you need to take care of for yourself.
Yeah.
Many of the stories that you hear about people getting robbed or mugged in Colombia are plain cases of stupidity and arrogance. I really do not subscribe to that blaming culture, but it happens. It happens. Many of these stories are of people who are getting drunk in bars and things like that. That's a risk that you need to avoid. But otherwise, yeah, you spend your day like normal. You don't flash too much. Yeah, you carry your phone in your pocket.
Yeah. You people here are very, very kind. They'll be very nice to you and they'll warn you. Listen to the warnings.
Yes.
And some people, when you're suspicious that they're too nice and they're inviting you to do things that are kind of like, should I go with you? Just don't do it.
Just don't do it. Just don't.
And you'll be fine, And then you have an amazing time, no matter how remote it gets in this country. Because, like, I've had situations where the car's been stuck in a small town, and I thought the whole village was coming. I thought we were going to get robbed. They're going to steal the car. That's it. We're finished. And then all the kids helped us pull the car out, and somebody washed the car. Beautiful people in this country, but you just have to. If you're going to go more extreme, then just ask yourself how much confidence and experience you have with that, because as you say, as soon as you get arrogant,
Absolutely.
you're finished.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with you on that. Colombian people are themselves nice, very, very nice people, some of the most loveliest people I have met. I often say that Colombia and India are very similar in terms of food, in terms of culture, in terms of what people have to offer.
Yeah.
And there are many a times where I have been warned by people on the street saying that, Senor, please take care of your phone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it is not a Colombian problem per se.
Yeah.
It is a problem with a small cross section of the population.
Right.
And what you can do to avoid that is just be a little more careful, just be a little more aware of your surroundings, and I think most of it will be fine.
It's amazing. Well, I think that concludes this conversation on your memorism. Yeah, and actually you spoke about India-Colombia connection. That sets us up for the next conversation.
Absolutely.